Are you ready? 20 seconds start now.
Trying to go 20-second thing here, but I
You're
can't.
live.
Yeah, I know, but I was trying to do a 20-second countdown.
It is.
Okay.
Don't worry about it now. You're live.
All right.
Bring yourself in.
Hold on a second. I'm trying. Yeah, I know, but I was trying to do a 20-second countdown. How come I'm not live?
Where are you?
Hold on a minute. We're here somewhere. Whoa, there we are. But why is this thing over here on my left-hand side here?
All I've got is the very Morphew not guilty thing.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
You're about 3 or 4 seconds behind me.
You're fuzzy.
I know, but why am I only there we are.
And then there's some gray-headed guy on there with you.
Yeah, gray-headed guy over here on my right. My right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Now it looks pretty good. What's in those cabinets back there behind you?
Uh, Wedding stuff.
Okay, it looked like a little stuffed animal. That's what I was
Charlo
wondering.
said, are you dead?
We're not dead. We're live.
Matt said they can hear you.
Okay. Oh man. Well, I've been trying to figure out this thing about the countdown and stuff like that. And right before I come on, it always looks great, and it always does great. But once I get on, it's not great no more. I don't know. Okay. Well, we want to talk tonight about. I went over and looked at this Barry Morphew case again and really read some of the officer's testimony and read some of the stuff, the newscaster's testimony, and me and Tony have been talking about this. And although I have my own opinion on it, and I think Tony does too, that we believe he's guilty, but we don't think it can be proven that he's guilty, because uh, one thing is, the it's going to be a mess because of the fact that the original DA got disbarred, and most of it, most people don't know really why she was disbarred. I've heard everybody tell me all kinds of stuff. But I think she was disbarred, but because they presented the case and they failed to give all the evidence that they had, exculpatory evidence especially, to the defense. And uh, for y'all that don't know, exculpatory evidence is evidence that could prove your client is innocent. That's what it is. It's called exculpatory. Now, why you say, okay, what would be the exculpatory evidence? Well, the fact that they found DNA in her vehicle, Susan's vehicle, partial DNA that belonged to a sex offender that had struck in Phoenix, or Arizona, Chicago, and I think it was in one other city. I'll have it in a few minutes to be exact. And even though the other evidence is pretty staunch against Barry, I believe if you didn't have that, uh, and I read some today on the actual exculpatory evidence, and several people said, "Man, I'd let him go. I don't think he's guilty." That in itself is enough reasonable doubt for me to say no, I couldn't find him guilty. Even though I believe, and you believe that, most people believe that he is guilty. But if we were all sitting as a jury and we found out all the things about the case, and it looked pretty, as we say, damning of a case against Barry, And then all of a sudden, the defense comes in with their part and gets the police officer on the stand, the detective, and says, "Tell me about the DNA you found in her car." Well, yeah, we did find DNA in her car. And this is something I brought up last time, and I'm going to read some of this stuff. They did find an unknown DNA on her bike, on her bicycle. So that in itself would be another. You can't, if you didn't know anything about a lot. Well, see, we know a lot about the case that the jury probably would never get to hear. We know a whole lot because everybody followed it so much. But if you didn't never get to hearing that stuff and you only heard what they was presented to you, and they find her bike down a ravine, uh, you know, it the defense said, "Hey, it's not our guy because we believe she went out for a bike and she was bike riding, she was attacked, and you got unknown DNA on her bike, you got partial DNA from a sex offender that has not been is not in custody. Partial. Now, we talked about this. Me and Tony talked about this earlier. About did you ever find out how many partial DNA? I don't think they even keep records on how many partial DNA. Uh, how many? I wanted to know, and I looked everywhere for it. I want to know how many crimes have been solved through partial DNA, or how many people have been tried from partial DNA. And my thing is, well, maybe it was two people involved in this, and that's where I would come from. But I think there's enough for it to be reasonable doubt. We're going to go over just, and I'm sure if y'all have read this before, just bear with me. It's some of the stuff I had not read before, and I had not. What or seen it before. And all right, it says DNA linked to sexual assaults found in Susan Morphew's car. Partial DNA profile created from a DNA left on Susan Morphew's glove box match profiles developed in a sexual assault case in Chicago, Phoenix, and I think it's Temple, Arizona. I'm blocking myself right here. Let me see so I can do it right here.
Yep.
And
Temple, Arizona.
Temple, Arizona. So,
I think it's
it's
10.
that is enough right there to be reasonable doubt, and that may be why they're not going to try. And like Tony said, he doesn't believe they'll ever arrest him again, that he'll never have to face these charges again. And I believe that until now, 5 years from now, DNA may be more advanced where they can find out who this person is, this partial DNA profile. It may be a whole lot advanced because we've gotten so much advanced. Right now, we've got touch DNA and a whole lot of other stuff. But they found it on the glove box, they found it on the headrest also. And like I said, they found another, uh, they have another one on her bike. And even though, yes, this is not 100% linked, because if this would have just been unknown DNA, you probably would have thought nothing about it. But since it was linked to a sexual assault, and she, even though what we believe, because we know a lot of the details that a jury probably wouldn't know right off the bat, then there's a lot of stuff that it was brought out in the press and everything that's happened that will never be brought up at trial. They just don't have enough. You just can't say everything you want at trial because you've got to establish that where it came from, not just because you. I'm going to delete these as I go because so that I can get to another thing. Um, you can't just say stuff. Investigators discovered mysterious male DNA. See, if it had been a female, that would have been even better. Male DNA in this Range Rover belonging to Susan Morphew. The Range Rover belonged to Susan Morphew. In October 2020, DNA testing revealed at least a partial match for an unnamed man connected with 3 unsolved sexual assault cases in Tempe, Phoenix, and Chicago. And I'm gonna tell you, if the defense brings this out and says, "Look, we want to bring something out that's going to be a reasonable doubt," then the doubt, how can you put this guy in jail probably for the rest of his life, ruin his reputation, ruin all the stuff? Because this is what I would say if I was the defense attorney. Because just because you can say, "Hey, Barry Morphew was a bad husband," Barry Morphew, that they didn't have a good marriage. She was having an affair with a boyfriend. He was jealous. He didn't want to give her a divorce. But that does not prove that he killed her. And the fact that you had this DNA from this unsolved sexual assault cases that is a partial DNA, said the legal team tends to file the civil suit. Now, I personally don't believe the civil suit, even though we know they've dropped it, but still, they've appealed it. They've appealed it to federal court, I believe. I don't believe that they'll ever go back into court because they did have probable cause, but just the fact that they held this exculpatory evidence is not in their favor. Yes, see that we held specific exculpatory evidence, DNA evidence, until after Barry's preliminary hearing in 2021, which decided the case against Barry is strong enough for him to go to trial. If they'd have had the exculpatory evidence and brought that out to a judge and been on the table, I don't know that they would have had. I don't know that if they would have had the evidence to do it, to take it to trial. I don't, because if I was on a jury and didn't know any of the facts of the case and this came out, it would be a big, big red flag for me, and that's why I'm kind of thinking that Tony's right, that we may not we may not see this case um, brought against Barry until they have some type of way of, one, finding out who this person is, and then finding out if he had a connection with this person that did these sexual assaults. Uh, if if he had some type of connection with Barry, saying that, oh well, the reason why, I don't know why I cannot delete this so I can go to this next one. Hold on one second here. Um, It says here the defense also noted that an unknown male DNA was discovered on the rear cushion of Susan Morphew's car and on the handlebars of the bicycle. Um, Said the defendant's DNA was not found on either of those samples. So you got Barry Morphew's prints. His DNA was not found on the bike at all. Doesn't mean he can't wipe them down, but if he'd wiped it down, don't you think he would have wiped the whole bike down so this other DNA would have been wiped away also? So that, to me, I'm telling you, it's just, there's a lot of unknown facts here that this DNA has really muddied the waters. Now, do I think somebody else helped him with this? Probably. Probably somebody helped him with this. But the fact is that, and I don't know that the DNA found on the bike wasn't one of the sheriff's department's DNA that went down there and got the bike, unless they wore gloves. I don't know any about that, but I do know that Barry's prints or DNA were not on the bike, but this other person's was. This unknown DNA person was. So you think about that. It's really, really strange
Yeah.
situation. Sure.
I mean, it's pretty evident the DNA where it was discovered is the rear cushion and the handlebars. That was somebody picking that bicycle up.
Well, no, the rear cushion was in the car. The rear
No,
cushion of Susan Morphew's car.
it says on the handlebars of her bicycle.
Yeah, it says here though the rear cushion of her car and one of the handlebars on the bicycle. So they're talking about the glove box and the rear cushion of Susan
Oh,
Morphew's
okay.
car,
I see what you're
and
talking about
the
now. I
but
was about to
in
say
the
if it was on
handlebars.
the back of the seat of the bicycle,
No,
that would have
no.
been clear that somebody probably picked it up like that.
Yeah, I threw it down the hill like that. That's the thing. I just don't. It's like here is now this girl. I believe she used to work for KKTV 11 News, and they were in the courtroom since they didn't allow for cameras. So the defense says DNA profile matches that form an unsolved sexual assault case in Tempe, Arizona, outside a convenience store. DNA was uncovered to see who the suspect was in that case and to see if they had any relation to the disappearance of Susan Morphew. And the fact that the partial DNA on the glove box matched that one case in Tempe, I don't know how much a partial is, even though, you know what I mean? The Colorado Bureau of Investigation was notified that there was another DNA profile match to an unsolved sexual assault case in Phoenix from the DNA found on the glove box. And in April 2021, defense said that another match for the unsolved sexual. Let me get over here this so I can read it. The defense said there was another match from an unsolved sexual assault case, this time in Chicago. Well, and I'm not sure. That's what I would like to. I wish I would like to talk to somebody that was a DNA expert so that we could find out. But right, and it's like now you said it could be a relative of that person, right? And my thing is though, until they find this person out, who it is, until they narrow it down to who it is and find out if he was involved in this with Barry, where they can tie Barry to it, it it just it just is a huge muddies the water, and I don't think a jury. And this is one reason I think too. Even after they found the body, they found the fact that the body had been in the marrow of the bones. They found that it had tranquilizers, some of these drugs from the tranquilizers that Barry used to tranquilize deer and stuff like that, which is huge. It's huge. But until they can narrow this other person down, I don't think they'll charge him. They're scared of getting either a hung jury or a not guilty verdict. And then he get a not guilty verdict, he could walk right outside that courtroom and say, "Ha ha ha, he did it," and nothing you can do about it. And I doubt he would, but that was just they could do that. So
Well, partial partial DNA sequencing refers to a limited section of a DNA molecule that they're being able to, extract. Whereas if they're able to get a complete DNA sequence, that means they're actually able to take that whole nucleotide sequence of a DNA molecule and they're able to study the regions, full, the full coding of the whole kit and caboodle. So that's basically what they didn't have versus doing or having rather.
yeah, it's just if I was on a jury looking here, and even with everything they have on him, and you have this DNA profile come up, even a partial DNA profile, it would be it might be enough to muddy the waters on a couple of people, especially people don't understand DNA as it is. And some people think DNA is, if you got DNA, that just says DNA, doesn't mean partial or not. And it's like here it says CODIS has produced over 729,700, 978 hits and assisted in more than 709,224 investigations. But the exact number of partial DNA hits is not really available, as the FBI statistics preliminary report on the total number of generated through the system, not differentiating between full and partial matches. And what I think they do is, say you had a suspect, say they had caught a guy there at the scene and they had a partial DNA hit and his DNA was a part of that partial, you could even, not to say, I'm wondering if the partial DNA did, is it because they didn't have enough material there to get the whole thing, the whole DNA profile?
Apparently, maybe what they were able to collect was tainted in some way of it not actually being complete. But like when they do a partial sequencing, that's like I'm trying to give an example. Maybe if someone has Down syndrome, and they're going to go in and they're going to look only at to see about this part of a chromosome, and they're just focusing on that area, then that's what it means to be partial. But to look at the whole region of the DNA is what gives them this full complete sequence, which gives all the genome information that they need to be able to match true identities and things like that.
Yeah, and there's one thing I saw where somebody said they probably took their helper into town, dropped them off or whatever. And see that, I mean, it would come closer for me to, if I was on a jury, to looking at the fact that they had somebody else in mind, and if they had that person in mind and they had run a DNA test on him, this what happens, But the partial match from the guys that the DNA they got in these sexual assaults, the reason why they don't know who this person is that did those sexual assaults is they've never been arrested before, or they've never had their DNA taken by anything, not been in the
Which is
ancestry.com or
where if it was the issue of the deputy touching the bike, they could have easily got a sample of him and then ruled
yeah.
out whether it was his or not. So,
And
and
one thing,
they might have done that, and they just not telling anybody.
yeah, well, one of the things is that I read where this one police officer that had gathered the DNA, the partial DNA, he went on military duty, like with the National Guard. He had to do his training, and he was gone. And for whatever reason, he didn't tell anybody to look to contact these people at like Phoenix and other areas to try to find out if they had anything else, any other DNA or apparently if you run somebody, you say you have a rape tonight where you live, then they run a DNA and they have a semen DNA. They run it through CODIS and they come up with zero, nothing. It doesn't mean that they're not that this guy, whoever had left the DNA, is not the right guy. It means he is the right guy, but it means he's never been caught before, or he's never been. Uh, it's just like I like to read all the books on serial killers and the Zodiac killer, and I've read the 3 or 4 books on him and watched a couple of movies on the Zodiac. Well, the Zodiac wrote in blood on the side of the cars that he what he did, wrote it in blood a lot of times. And I think that they probably could still go back and get DNA, to find out who this guy was. But I even think they may have one time did that, but they never had a DNA profile on him because back then, first off, they never took a lot of the samples of that because DNA was not something that they was, it wasn't in on the pipeline back then, but
Right.
I think maybe someday the partial DNA will get more so, and this basically is just a clear version of that we just looked at. CODIS contains over 15,508,818, probably more than that now since this was in November, offenders profiles in CODIS. Basically, it's the DNA index, and 5,704 arrestee profiles and over 1,013,000 forensic profiles, such as like if they had unknown bodies, dead bodies, or uh, people involved in homicide or something. A lot of times they'll take their DNA, especially if they don't know who they are. Ultimately, the success of CODIS program will be measured by the crimes it helps solve, and CODIS preliminary metric or investigative aided. It tracks the number of criminal investigations where CODIS has added value to the investigative process, and all of this pretty much depends on your departments. Like even the smaller departments that we worked at, and I worked at a very large department, and I worked at a kind of a medium sized department, and even the real small department. When you were arrested, they took your DNA. If it was a felony, they would swab your mouth and put it in a thing and send it in. And I think they still do that at the county jails, or when you go to prison, I think they do. And we're lucky that they haven't, some of these liberal lawyers have not protested that. Um, see, 50 states and Puerto Rico as well. Um, mm, Okay, basically all the states are involved, even Puerto Rico and District of Columbia and U.S. Army bases, stuff like that found around D.C. have all take their statistics from CODIS and various things like that. But, I do feel like just my opinion is, and me and Tony have talked about this before, that I feel like that the reason why they have not wait a minute, I got rid of this. They have not prosecuted him again is because if they just can't take the chance on getting a not guilty verdict, and you know just because we know a lot of facts. If you tell me all the facts that I know right now, and even with this this unknown DNA, I personally would think that he's guilty because of the uh, all that they got, all kinds of evidence from the his phone, and the fact that he had the dart uh, lid was in the dryer, and he shot those type of darts at deer, claiming to get their horns, and the fact that when he left his house with his work truck, he missed. There was some time differences. He was seen on cameras stopping at 3 or 4 dumpsters and putting big bags of something in the dumpsters, which I'm sure could have been evidence. But they can put all that. They can give that to the jury, but the minute the defense is going to say, "Look, you can't send a guy to prison forever," for a crime just because he was a bad husband, or just because he didn't want his wife to have a divorce, and just because he would say certain things, and this what he told the police that the reason why he dumped that stuff in the garbage thing was because he was cheap. He didn't want to pay for a dumpster fee, and so when he'd have stuff clean out his truck from various things, he would make two or three piles, and instead of going to one dumpster, he would go to 3 or 4 dumpsters within the city. Which I don't think that's why put yourself out there being seen 4 or 5 dumpsters trying to throw away stuff and get caught by saying, "Hey, man, don't use our dumpster," when you could just find one secluded and throw them all in the same dumpster. But you know, still,
That poison got into her bones.
right?
I mean, it's not like you get that and accidentally brush it against your skin and then you're going to have it in your bones. I mean, that's pretty unique, I would say. But it still boils back down to when there's other evidence that could be tainting the, as the old saying, the fruits of the poisonous tree scenario. You've got to really kind of regroup on whether or not you can proceed with the case. Or are you going to have a flawed defense to the scenario to not be able to prove it? Well, even though
Yeah,
you've got circumstantial evidence to do this and you've got factual evidence for this, there's still, of course, it still boils down to this too. When we can go back to cases that they had DNA on the O.J. Simpson case, and I mean,
yeah,
there's no question now after he's on his own uh, book that he wrote thing and all that. There's no question what really happened, but um,
yeah. But they listened to the one glove defense. You could take any glove out and make it look like it's not going to fit your fingers. But the one thing I think too, and I know this, you can go ahead and charge him again, and you can, as long as you give the defense that evidence that was hidden in the first place. If you give them all that exculpatory evidence, anything, any DNA you found anywhere that was not his, and any evidence, because people don't see, most people don't understand this. When you go to trial, the prosecution has to give all of their evidence they're going to bring up in trial to the defense. That's just the way it is. It's the way the court system works. You've got to do it. And if the defense is going to bring up uh, insanity defense, they've got to tell them ahead of time. And if they're going to blame it on somebody else, they've got to be able to prove that to the judge before the judge will allow them to bring up that defense. You just can't
well,
throw them in there.
now that we know, though, that's what I'm getting at. Though now that we know some other things, we now know that he really was obviously guilty. Same thing goes for just some other cases that you and I have talked about before, that they were able to go back and find that things were actually tainted or whatever else. Now, some other case that was interesting that I saw today. Do you remember the case with the little Soto girl?
What?
Do you remember
What?
that case? Her last name was Soto, Soto.
Not really. What did you do?
It
Refresh
was
me.
where she was a teenage girl, and her mother's boyfriend uh, was arrested, and he's pending trial right now for killing her. She went missing, but they said that they carried her to school, and he said he dropped her off. And then it was first that they did it, but then she turned around and said, "Well, no, he left with her, and he actually did it." So that was a little bit of mishap on what they were talking about. and then turned around. They got his phone. Yeah, Madeline Soto. I see what Max put
Okay,
up.
yeah.
And now they got into his phone, and he had several inappropriate pictures with him and this girl doing things and all that. And but there is a video that I listened to and watched today with my wife. She watches a lot of the crime stuff on television, on the crime TV, and all that. Anyway, though, it was very interesting to hear her say she was telling a friend that she had always, quote, hoped that her relationship with him, with Stephen Stearns, that her relationship with him would not turn out to be a Woody Allen event.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, hold on. Uh, you wouldn't never even say anything like that unless you knew something was going on between you and this boyfriend of yours.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, there's no question, at least in my mind, after hearing her say that there might be, not only did she have knowledge that him and her were doing something while she was pretending to be asleep, or she went to sleep and he would go in the room with this teenage girl and supposedly sleep with her instead of sleeping with her mother. And her mother knew about it, but didn't. Of course, she claimed to the detectives in her interview that she didn't know that they were doing anything. I don't buy anything like that at all now, for sure, without question. Especially after hearing her say that remark, that was crazy.
How do
So,
y'all feel? How do y'all feel about the new law that the Republicans are pushing for? And I think I first off, I don't believe that a true pedophile can ever be cured. I don't think that the true sexual offender that rapes children and all this stuff can ever be cured. Well, they're wanting to do the death penalty for anyone that sexually rapes a child, and that I'm sure that they'll have a two or three. They're not going to go back. I'm thinking they're not going to go back, say 16 years old as a child or 14 in some cases, because then you have somebody 25 and 14. Like now, it's got to be raped. It's got to be over 2 year difference. Over, uh, you know, there's got to be 2 years difference in case there's somebody like. Kid that's 12 and say the other girl's 14. And I'm not saying that's right, but they're saying that the death penalty, they'll give the death penalty to anybody that rapes a child, period. Now, I don't know what the age range for they'll consider to be, but you got these idiots out here that in their 30s and 40s that rape a little 6 year old or a 4 year old or under 12 years old. They'll say under 12, especially for a child. And you got somebody, and really in Alabama, if you can be convicted of rape of any age and get the death penalty in Alabama, it's not given out a lot. There have been people that have been executed for rape in the back in the 30s and 40s for sure. But uh,
did you
they,
know? You
but
talking
the
about the?
one
Oh well,
one
let me.
thing, Tony, one thing I want to say is this though: the reason why I say I'm for this law, especially rape of children, but I want them to, and I wouldn't have a problem for rape, period, for rape being life without parole or whatever, or even the death penalty. But I want to make sure that somebody just doesn't make something up. That there has to be something, because too many times, and I see it a lot if in a case where they have the father and the mother are getting a divorce, and the mother convinces the court, and maybe falsely, that the girl is supposed to say that her daddy tried to molest her or whatever, And then if that's true, he needs to pay the piper. But if it's just because the mother hates the father so bad that she'll make something up, I want to just make sure that it's above board and all that. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want somebody falsely to be accused of it.
Oh yeah, but what I was wondering when you were popping in about the 12-year-old thing, that was some of the evidence that was supposed to be in that case, was that they uncovered stuff that he had been doing stuff since she was 12 years old.
Right. And
And
you can't heal these people can't change, man. I've seen them too much. They cannot change. They
yeah,
they get just we had a police officer that worked in our department, and I presented some evidence to the chief that he was basically doing drugs with younger people, and for whatever reason they didn't feel like that. Had a picture of the guy holding up a bag of grass with him in the car, and there was no arrest involved with this person. And I brought it to the police department, and nothing was done about it. And shortly after that, he got arrested for a despicable act of child rape with his own son. And he was out on $100,000 bond, and they arrested him. The FBI arrested him, and he ran, and he was gone like 2 years. In fact, the only way they picked him up, an FBI agent on vacation saw him in Mexico, and knew who he was, and they picked him up in Mexico. And I have no sympathy for anybody that hurts a child, and mentally, physically, or sexually, or anything like that. I have no sympathy. So, and I can tell you, these people like that get down here and rape a child, and and these little babies do stuff to them and everything. They need the death penalty because they will not change. And be honest with you, a lot of them will receive the death penalty, but they will receive it by the prisoners because they hate those people. But Alabama has their own prison that has all of the sexual offenders, all the AIDS patients go to this one prison in Limestone County. If you are convicted of a sex crime or you have AIDS, you go to that one prison. Doesn't mean you
now,
won't go to the two, but that's go to that
did
one.
you? I know you and I hadn't talked about this, but I forgot to mention it to you when we had talked. Did you see the story with Candace Owens about they were basically exposing the president of France and his wife? Did you see that?
I saw something like that, and I also heard, I don't know if it's true or not, I heard that Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly just got a $400 million deal on a show that's supposed to go up against The View, same time slot of The View. So that'd be good if it is, because Candace
I
Owens,
heard that. I did hear that too. Well, the one with the deal with the president is that his wife currently now that his wife was actually his teacher in school, and that she was married at the time, and they had actually started seeing each other when he was in school, and they waited till he graduated and went to college. They continued to see each other, but then she left her husband for him, and then now they're of course married today. And I'm thinking, wow,
yeah,
that's
but
pretty.
you know what's weird is,
You
and
know what the age difference was?
no,
She's like 72 and he's 47.
well, here's what the problem is, though, with that. A lot of people, and I'd say probably over half people, when they hear this, well, the guy is the younger one, they almost blame the guy, even if the guy's a teenager. They don't see it as that bad of a crime if it's the older woman and the younger guy. They consider it like Mrs. Robinson type thing. But the it's both ways. It's both ways because the male is not does not mature as fast as the female does. That's just unfortunately that's just the way it is. Um, One thing I did want to say too is though they're still looking for this guy in Huntsville, this real estate agent. He is still missing. He's been missing um, since mid December. He actually, the police department have came out and said, "Look, we're not calling this foul play yet because I don't know. They must know something I don't." But his family is worried sick about him, and he's apparently was a pretty successful realtor, and might have just got with the wrong crowd, and he is still missing since mid December, and here it's coming up on probably a month now since he's he's been missing, and they believe he made it to Jackson, Tennessee. But that's pretty much all I know. Now, I did want to say something.
This is the one where they found his vehicle on the
Right.
highway.
I did want to say something about this guy right here that we talked about last Thursday.
Yeah, where he was
He's
sitting in a restaurant with his mother.
Yeah, he's the autistic one. Um, they have the Cajun Navy went up there to do some searching for him, and they got threatened. They were threats. They had to call off their search for safety. They got threatened. I don't know. They're not saying really what. Maybe I think there were some phone calls made to them saying basically y'all need to mind your own business and you need to stay out of Tennessee. And I don't know what all it was, but what kind of person really there? You got a group is going to try to find this kid, and they're threatening the group. I'm going to tell you my theory on it. I think they need to polygraph the mother. Um, it's just weird. Uh, it's just very, very weird, the whole situation. Apparently, the custody situation was very uh, aggravated. And I'm not making accusations. I'm asking questions. If you have a 15-year-old autistic child, does the government pay you money to help take care of the child? Do you know if there's any government?
It depends on if the child has actually already been deemed under Social Security to be disabled. If the child is just merely been diagnosed and is not necessarily being on disability through Social Security, then no,
Yeah.
they're not going to be getting any money.
Well, it would be, it just seems really weird. I know it's a strange relationship, and you know, I don't know. It seems like to me that they need to polygraph them. And I know a lot of people saying, "Well, polygraph doesn't do nothing. You can beat a polygraph." Yeah, you can. You can beat a polygraph, but it the 9 times out of 10 you won't beat a polygraph, and it doesn't. You can't use it in court, but you can direct your investigation by, you know, if you polygraph her and in a polygraph, um, we've talked about this before. In a polygraph, they do an interview with you for about 2 hours, and you talk about everything. And then they'll judge you, your mannerisms, they'll judge your breathing, they'll judge how you answer questions in an interview and all this stuff. And then they'll hand you the questions. Uh, a lot, I think I've seen them do it. I've taken about 4 or 5 polygraphs for jobs, and we demonstrated how polygraph works when I was working for a large police department for the police academy. I came in and they said, I want you to lie about certain things on this polygraph. Even though that I didn't feel guilty about lying about them because it was a demonstration, it still showed that I was lying about them. So what they do is a lot of times they'll interview you for a couple hours, then they'll say, I'm going to read you the questions I'm going to ask you. And they'll read them to you firsthand. Then they'll hand you the questions on a sheet and say, here, look these over again, get familiar with them. I'll be back in a few minutes. And they'll leave you in there for about 10, 15 minutes. And they'll let you think about those questions, especially if you get one that, because what they'll do is they'll ask you what your name is, and they'll say, okay, I'm going to ask you the color of this wall, and it could be like beige. I want you to tell me it's red, and that's gonna so you're catch you how I want you to tell me a lie. This sentence be a lie about something. I mean, it's nothing crazy. And then they'll ask you on there, have you ever stolen anything over $50 from work? Have you ever lied about being sick at work? Have you ever stolen anything over $100? Have you ever uh, used any drugs that we haven't that you told me earlier that you haven't? They'll catch you that way. It's mostly yes or no stuff. Have you ever killed anybody? Have you ever stole a car? Have you ever uh, did heroin? Have you ever smoked marijuana? A lot of it, nowadays, even the FBI, I think they allow, used to, you could never smoke marijuana and be an FBI agent. But I think the way they do it now is, have you ever done it in the last 5 years? But they'll ask you, have you ever smoked marijuana or have you ever done this? And, but on this type of polygraph with a mother, do you know where your son is? That would be one big question. Do you know what happened to your son? Do you know who took your son? Do in other words, pointed questions that are really, have you told me the whole truth in our interview? You know, uh, have you taken anything prior to this? They'll say this to you. This is a big thing. They'll say, have you taken any sedatives or pills prior to taking this polygraph to try to beat the polygraph, basically? And because a lot of times people take like a Xanax or something like that to get their breathing and all that to level their system out. It's not a guarantee, but they'll do anything to try to beat this polygraph. But anyway, I think they need to polygraph her. I think they need to um, interview both of them. What I consider to be a suspect interview, because a lot of times the family is the first one they do anyway. I know they were supposed to do that in the Ramsey case, the the Patsy Ramsey and John Ramsey, in which they were so rich they didn't do it. Um, so I just believe that there's more to it on this case than meets the eye. I really do. But the real estate guy, I have no idea. I kind of think maybe he got with the wrong people, and they, maybe he had money on him. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Any other? You got any other questions or something? How do you feel about the? How do y'all feel about the Morphew case? Do you feel like he'll ever be charged again with this unknown DNA out there? I know you probably want him charged. I would love to see a trial, but I don't want to see a trial that has evidence there that's going to create doubt and cause them to um, for him to be acquitted, because I believe whoever did this needs to pay for it. with prison time, or Colorado apparently doesn't have the death penalty in this case. Any other questions or anything? Well, it is an hour, and if you wanted us to do anything, please send us an email, and we will take a look at it.
Hey, did you? This is definitely off topic from everything that we've talked about tonight, but I just throw it out there. Did you see the video that the gentleman took at JFK's shooting? That they had released the actual true video footage, and they went back and they were questioned about all that at the time when it was going on anyway. And it was to make it to appear, the only part they went back and they basically altered the original video, and they took a clip out of it. Matter of fact, they took so many different frames out of it, and they tried to make it where his head was going forward and not coming backwards, so it would line up with him being shot from the book suppository. And it clearly
Well, I
was
tell
not.
you, with as much
Clearly
as
was not. And so they've
the
also
AI stuff, you can make anybody look in anything.
they've also they know for sure that there was a fourth bullet.
Well, after I
It's
tell you,
It's
there
very
is
interesting.
there is several AI stuff on right now that that you can actually
Hey,
uh,
everybody.
have a person AI thing where a girl, you can make a girl that looks absolutely real, and it can be a assistant for you, and to answer questions that you don't know anything about through Chat GBT. You can talk to them. They
Is
can.
that what you've been doing at night on
Yeah,
Oh,
you caught me. You caught me. And they no, I'm not paying for that. It's you pay something like $15 a month to this person. You can make it a man, a woman, a cartoon character, make it
How about a
anything you want
lab?
to.
Make it a
You
lab.
can do it. You can make it a dog if you
A
want to,
doggy that
and
talks.
that talks to you all the time. And I watched the film of it, and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So
Anthony's still laughing about it. Anthony, you never know what I'm going to say.
Okay, well,
I just wanted to say hello to everybody. I am still here. I haven't left him. I just was sitting over there chatting with y'all.
Really, I'm an AI person. She's killed the real Tommy, and I'm perfect. I'm just an AI guy, you know.
He's got to lose some more weight before I can get rid of him.
Yeah. God, that's twice today you've insulted me.
Oh,
yeah,
careful.
Earlier you insulted me earlier, and I didn't forgot.
He wanted me to get rid of the cat because the cat gets up in his lap and sneezes in his face. He wanted me to get rid of him. Not like kill him.
No,
just get him out of his lap. That sounded bad.
wow.
You are going to have some ice down there, but we probably, if we stay up here, are not going to have any snow. They're not predicting anything. They're predicting ice and snow for your area. We are probably going to come on down if we can find a place to stay early. And since we didn't get my back procedure done, so today I was trying to
Do you need to
actually
borrow my walker?
stuff done. Your what?
My walker. Do you need to borrow it?
His walker.
No,
I got a wheelchair for him.
I don't want to take your walker away from you.
I can push him around.
No.
All right, boys and girls.
Thanks for everybody that got on here. At one point, there was 17 people. I don't know if it ever got more than that, but there's still 14 here.
Okay. Well,
thank y'all for checking us out.
Yeah,
Send us any information of missing people you want us to check out.
Because we've lost 8 people in the last 28 days from this our thing. So we'll do what we can, but this is a slow time of year anyway.
I'm just kind of curious.
All right.
Well, curious. What's that extra twig that's coming off of the right side of your head right there? That's like that. Yeah, that.
Right there.
Is that?
I need a haircut.
I'm not going to remind me. I'll tell you something when we're around you.
Yeah, we're not going to tell me right now.
Is that your?
I need a haircut, really.
Cowlick?
Huh? No, I need a haircut again. I think I'm going to shave my head.
No, you're not.
Don't tell me what I ain't.
No, you're not.
See, here's my problem. I grow my hair long. You need to cut your hair. I shave my hair short. You need to let your hair grow long again.
This stuff right here.
Well, at least you still have hair. That's the main thing.
Amen.
All right.
Bye,
well, y'all,
we'll
see y'all later. And
they're dropping like flies.
We're dropping like flies. And hang in here a minute, Tony. I want to ask something. Let me give us 20 seconds to put on the back side of this.
Okay.
Where's my? Oh, there it is. Okay, guys, I'm going to just cut us off here a minute and try to get the a 20-second thing for our thing, and we'll see you next Thursday, provided we don't get snowed in. Tell me if you hear anything, Tom. Now, why am I not hearing nothing?
You're still showing live.
I don't know. All right. We'll see you later.